I thought I would look at that before we got started, you know.
The whole
Oh, there I
being,
am.
the whole being listened to is kind of like a key thing. The idea behind,
But not ghost, but not ghost.
oh, to all of you who may be listening, we're dealing with some technical issues here, real quick, but we'll shortly be able to.
And how about now? Yeah, there we go. Can you hear
Can
me
you hear
now?
him now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that, folks. Yay.
I
there you
would
go.
wonder if we really need audio for this whole streaming thing. Maybe we don't need to be heard.
You just
Actually,
watch our
maybe.
hands.
Yeah, maybe we should.
That's it.
Just
Google
do.
just added the whole automatic caption thing, so that people that are using Chrome will just be able to get the captions. That's
Yeah,
it. Done.
that's true. And actually, we can try to put. I think there's a text message thing now. As you talk, there's like a text message that scrolls in your like window for Twitch. Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
Closed
it's pretty cool.
captions. Awesome. So hello guys, hello
Yeah.
everybody.
Hello.
This is our like facsimile of a theme song. We don't have a theme song for the show yet, so
That was
soon we will.
facsimile. I thought it was
Is it
facsimile. Fa-
facsimile? Eh.
yeah.
That's
Hello.
similar.
So welcome to Table Talk RPG, everybody. I am Axio, and these are.
I am Ghost,
And I
and
am savvy.
All right. So today we are going to be doing our second part of the Cortex deep dive, in which the gang creates a game, right? So take it away, Ghost.
oh me. Okay, all right. I thought you were gonna do it. Sure. Okay.
There you go. No, you're good.
Okay. So
I mean, the way it works is you get started and then I interrupt you every 2 minutes, so it
of
still
course,
works
yeah,
out.
and then we go back and forth. We fight, and whatever. It's
Clearly,
fine.
Can
that's
I
what the
ask
people are here.
something? Ghost, since you have taken over officially the Twitter, did you tweet that we've started?
Of course. No, I said that we will start, but I can't. I will do that right now. Sure.
Okay, because I deleted
I
the app.
ah. All right.
You
All right.
tweeting that on Twitter is the difference between having 10 viewers or 2 million. So get on it. Like we
Yeah,
usually do.
I know, right?
All right.
All
So
right. You guys can
while
keep talking
Ghost
while
gets
I do this. Yeah.
Okay.
that done, today we're going to be as part of our deep dive. What we're going to be going through is the typical process that each of us goes through when we are creating a Cortex RPG game, and that is twofold. There are two main kind of things that we do when we are creating a Cortex game. We are creating the experience that the GM is going to have and the experience that the player is going to have. And we do that based on Cortex's modular design ethos. So the way it works is you have your core resolution mechanic in Cortex, but then you can use different mods to change the way that feels. And these mods can affect both the things on the GM side of things and also on the player side of things. Just to give you an example, on the GM side of things, some of the mods that you can include may allow you to use a fixed target number for resolution of the dice.
Mhm.
Or it could be different. It could be more where the GM rolls the dice along with the players and establishes the number to beat that way. Or any other mods that are
Yeah.
included in the book, or any others that you can think of
So
that actually fit the game, right?
okay. So okay. So first of all, so I put it on Twitter. We're good now.
Good.
So basically, but the thing is, the unique thing about each mod is that it brings a unique feeling or a unique experience to whatever game you're playing. So you have to be careful what you pick. What you choose on the GM side because it's gonna have a different thing. I love using the Doom pool. Doom pool came from Marvel Heroic because it's a pacing mechanic in the sense that everything can go downhill very quick, and players have very few things they can do about it, right? But or there's other there's other stuff you can do, but
Yeah,
that one
so
is my favorite. So
the idea is to pair the mechanic to the feel, the
mhm.
tone, the mood, and the setting that you're playing.
Yep,
If you're
yep,
playing a setting that is very fast paced and should bring a sense of dread and danger, you will
Mm.
pick mods that will enhance that feel.
Mhm.
Whereas if you're playing a slower, more emotional, maybe political intrigue, or maybe like interpersonal relationship kind of game, then you might want to pick mods that evoke that kind of slower pace, more dramatic, heavier feel.
Yeah.
Just to give you an example, if you're going to play something that's romantic, or playing something that is political, or maybe like a courtroom drama, you may
You
not
won't
want to
use the
use
Doom
you
Pool.
won't use the Doom Pool. But if you're playing,
Hey, if you do
for
it right, it will work.
it could
Yeah.
work. It could work. Maybe you're an innovator, right? But if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
playing like a
Mhm,
four-color supers game, or maybe you're playing something
mhm.
that's like street level heroes, or if you're doing a dungeon crawl, which yes, you can do with a narrative system like Cortex. If you're doing one of those, then choosing the right mods can make or break would make your game, while choosing the wrong ones could, well, potentially not bring the best experience.
Okay.
However, a word of comfort is that it'll be very difficult for you to choose a bad mod. I don't think it's about good or bad. It's more
No.
about enhancing the feel or not
Mhm.
enhancing the feel, right? So
Yeah.
in that regard, you're fairly safe. On the player side of things, one of the easiest ways to impact the game is what trait sets you choose for the players to have. And for example, you can have trait sets that are very traditional, such as attributes, skills, right? These are things that we've seen in very popular games like 5e or Pathfinder or even Savage Worlds. Um, but if you're playing something that is more about interpersonal drama, then you might pick, instead of attributes and skills, you may pick relationships,
Mhm.
values, things that evoke what is important in that setting. Okay, if I watch, for example, let's bring an example here. If I am watching an episode of Days of Our Lives, the famous soap opera that's been running for 354 years now,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
if you're running something that is Days of Our Lives, I don't think we are concerned with whether one character is able to pick a lock or not. We're not concerned with whether the person can repair or heal or
We want to
fly.
know if they can lie.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We want to know if
And
they
yeah.
would. Actually, we want to know if they would lie, which brings in
Yeah.
values.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are
Mhm.
they honorable?
Yeah.
Do they have courage? We want to know who they're friends with. So we have another list that is relationships. We want to know if, for example, if John is friends with David, then maybe John has a D12 on the name David. That means that any interactions that involve David, he would roll, or they would roll a D12. So that is how you can impact things on the player
Mhm.
side, by making the right choice of traits for your characters. In today's session, what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be doing something very traditional, just because I think is the easiest for people to relate to. So we're going to be building a traditional fantasy game, not unlike something you might see out of your favorite traditional game that everyone loves.
The
Um,
big unnamed
the big
monolith
unnamed, yes,
uh
yes.
that
The
Made
everybody
400-pound
encounters.
gorilla.
which is made by a company called Mages of the Shoreline. Um, yeah,
Oh,
that
so
one.
okay, so yeah, so before we get to that, right? Again, we're gonna put another disclaimer, right? We have no affiliation with
None.
fandom, with the designer Ken Banks. This is just because we love Cortex and we like talking about it, and
To be honest, we're not even sure Cam likes us very much, but still, that's not, that may
we
or
don't
may
we
not
don't
be
do
close.
we don't even. I know, right?
We don't, we don't know.
I don't know.
But we are definitely not affiliated. Definitely not
Yeah,
affiliated. Although we have the highest respect and love for all of these companies that we're going to be
yeah,
talking about,
yeah, yeah,
but we're
yeah,
not
yeah.
affiliated to any of
Yeah.
them.
So we do our respect to them and what they've done, for the hobby, for this wonderful, wonderful hobby.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so let's get this started.
Let's get to it.
All
Woo!
right. All right. So questions, we're probably gonna have a little bit of time for them at the end. So I'm just gonna keep on the lookout for them, and then we can, excuse me, we can
Yeah,
answer
I
them
think
as
are we gonna have like a list that people can see that's being like, or no? Are you going to be
the,
Yeah, you
projecting?
should have a scene, right? Did you
for
do the
what?
scene with Notion? With Notion?
Nah, I'm not gonna do that. Nah. I do
All
have
right,
it
guys,
ready. I do have it ready, but I'm not gonna do it. We're
But I
gonna.
was ready. I was ready for
we are professionals. We have standards.
Yeah. So I mean, I can do it if you want. I would have to crop people out and try to mush us into the
We
different
may do it
spots.
for upcoming episodes.
Okay.
Maybe for upcoming episodes.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
now, I
yeah.
guess we don't. So
I
I
would not
think
using
what
it.
we should start with is talking a little bit first of all about
Okay.
what mods we're going to be using for the
So
resolution.
yes. So okay. First of all, should we? Yeah, sure. Let's do that. Okay. So what we're gonna do is, in this case, because it's a very tropey, high fantasy game. Um, there's a couple of things that I would, as the GM, I would use for mods. I would use, depending on the feel again that I'm trying to do. I would use.
Sorry. Pause. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Disclaimer. We are starting from the assumption that you have acquired or that you are familiar with some of the things that we are going to like. We are understanding that you are already somewhat familiar with Cortex, or that you
Oh
may
yes,
own the
yes,
manual
yes,
because we may use some wording or some terms.
yes.
If
Very,
you
very good
don't
disclaimer.
own Cortex, if you do not own the game yet, notice how I use the big yet. If you don't own it yet, then we're still going to throw these terms and things around because maybe in the future, when you do own the system, you can look back at this recording and then kind of make sense of what we're saying. It's just that we
Yeah.
really want to make sure that we don't take forever explaining what every single term is. So we're going to assume that if you're here and watching, you either probably already know Cortex, probably own the book, or if not, that once you do, you'll feel happy asking us anything you want to ask us. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions through our Discord, for which we're going to have links somewhere, right,
Yep.
Sabi?
Yeah, they have
Somewhere.
the links
Um,
are in there. Yeah, the links are in
the
the
links are in there.
Yes.
in
Okay,
the
great,
Twitch.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
Sorry. I am the official chat reactor, so that's what I'm doing.
There we go.
Y'all keep
Okay.
on
So,
doing what
so
you
All
let's
right.
do.
go. Let's keep
Okay.
on trucking, Ghost.
All right. So, actually, before I go into the GM side, I usually like to do the player side first. Why? Because the GM side, the players honestly don't need to see it. What I do with it. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go over the player side because that is what you present to the players. You present them a character sheet of whatever traits you're using, whatever trait sets you're using, and that will let them know how they should play the game. That is a big thing about Cortex because the character sheet tells you what it is in this game, what is the theme, what is the feel, what is the what is the experience that you want to get out of the game. That you can simply do that with the character sheet for the players, and then on the GM side, then that enhances that experience. So if I'm low, let me know because I'm trying out a new mic. So if I'm low, let me know. If not, then yeah,
It
I don't
sounds great. You sound great, Ghost.
know. Okay, all right, cool. All
Sound
right.
pretty great.
So so basically, for the player side, we're gonna go very simple, very high fantasy. So what I thought was, okay, let's do a distinctions, right? Distinctions are first, but those ones are a little bit tricky to get right. So I'm going to skip over those, and I'm gonna go into another. They're called prime sets, right? You have the three prime sets, which are gonna be distinctions, are gonna be attributes, and then they're gonna be approaches, not skills, approaches. Why? We'll explain that in a second. So you have the three prime sets. Why they're called prime sets? Because when you do every single action that requires a roll, you have to roll those three dice. Now, the only one is the distinction, which according to somewhere, it should, if it doesn't work 100% of the time, it's gonna work 95% of the time. The approaches and the attributes, you will always have to roll at least those two, right?
to
Right.
to give an idea, to
Hmm.
give a rough idea for those of you, even though I said that we were assuming that you're already familiar with Cortex, I think distinctions is something that we can kind of compare to your 5 second elevator pitch of your character. For example,
Yes, yes, they are.
let's say that my character is Batman. Let's assume that my character is Batman, right? Then it's this. Their distinctions would be Dark Knight of Gotham. That would be one of the distinctions.
Yep,
The second distinction would be richest man alive.
yep,
The third distinction could be scarred by the death of my parent. So this could be the three distinctions that describe my character. So think of it as if you're telling someone who your character is, but through short, to the point little phrases that when you're doing any action, you
Mhm.
can use any of them sensibly to justify that action. Just to give you an example, if I am about to swing from the rafters of a building,
Mhm.
then clearly the distinction that would probably power that or allow me to do that would be the fact that I am the Dark Knight of Gotham. And if the entire table is familiar with the trope of Batman, they will know what you mean by saying I am the Dark Knight of Gotham. Of quite a bit of importance is that your table understands the what you mean by your distinction, because
Yes.
that way there won't be any confusion as to why it is that you could justify that your role uses it. Now,
Mhm.
that being said, I fully agree, and the book agrees with Ghost that you should be able to use your distinctions as much as possible. But there may be a time where you're
Mhm.
trying to do an action that none of your distinctions apply. And if that's the case, then, well, that was a little unlucky of you. So when you, as a player, are coming up with your distinctions, a very good idea is that you first consult them with your GM or your table and see if they pass muster and see if you can kind of put yourself into a couple of situations, maybe mentally,
Yeah.
do that little exercise and see, well, if I wanted to do this, could I use one of them? If I wanted to do that, could I use one of them? And if the answer is yes, most of the time, then you know you have a good distinction in your hands. For our game, let's assume that I am making a warrior. So I am going to be making that warrior for our setting. So my first distinction could be actually just as easy greatest warrior in the realm. Done. Or it could even be maybe I'm not the greatest warrior in the realm. Maybe I could say something like um I trained as a warrior since I was a child. It could be that.
So you would want to do the second one because your distinction also needs to be able to be hindered. How does the greatest warrior of all time be hindered
Okay,
ever?
so I would have an answer to that, and this is very important because it comes a little bit from what I understand from Fate, for example, is
What I mean when
you.
distinctions are very tricky.
Yeah, no, they are tricky, but this is such a great remark by Savvy because she is correct. So in this regard, how would I treat that? Well, we have to make a very important distinction here that
Ha, pun.
even though
Got
you
it.
are the greatest warrior in the realm, that may not mean that as the greatest warrior, you can solve the problem at hand. So you could be the greatest warrior in the realm, but if you hinder yourself, maybe being the greatest warrior was a bad thing. Let's say you're trying to pass through a crowd unnoticed. Could someone who is the greatest warrior in the realm go through a crowd unnoticed? Somebody's gonna
I
look at
like
you and go,
I like
"Whoa!"
how I like how Axel turns into his teacher mode.
Right, and
Yeah,
slowly his
so the idea would be
No,
the
it's
idea would
perfect.
be
I get
that
it
if
now. Yeah,
if you
yeah,
are
yeah.
the greatest warrior in the realm, I would say, well, I want to in this role, I want to hinder myself. I would say, well, because I am the greatest warrior, I'm trying to sneak past it through this crowd. Somebody's gonna go, oh, isn't that Axio the greatest warrior in the realm?
This
And
is
then
a great
you're in trouble.
example of the game that you play in Cortex, unless it's like a strictly pre-created thing, is
Mhm.
more of a conversation between the GM and the player.
Yeah.
Because in
Yeah.
that scenario, I was the GM and I was like, that won't work because how do you hinder it? And then he was able to justify it. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
being a good salesperson is one of the key key attributes of a good player in Cortex, as it is for Fate. Actually, I'll be very
Yeah.
honest. In Fate, that
Yeah.
is, some of the arguments could become a little
So
heated.
another thing that happens with distinctions because they're so tricky and because you're trying to bring a specific theme or a specific I don't know, feel to the game, right? You can have them not preset, but you can have them be specific. For example, one one aspect. Okay,
Distinction, one
one
distinction.
distinction. One distinction has to be your origin, right? Where did you come from, right? That can be anything, but it has to detail where you came from. The second one has to be a distinction about your renown. What are you known for? Okay. And then the third could be, what do you hope to achieve? What is your big plan for the future? What, and so that everything you do is kind of tailored to that ambition, I guess, or to that goal, right? Or you can have another thing entirely. You can have some drive that, that you want to, hey, I want to extinguish all evil on the land or whatever. So, and that gives also the players and the GM a little bit of an idea of where to work in, what kind of bubble to work in, so that way you don't have a session zero that takes about 6, 7, 8 hours, right? And you
Hmm.
can have very simple discussion. Hey, where did I come from? Okay, this is what's gonna happen. This is what happened, and that is it. And then you come up with a phrase that describes your backstory, right? And that's why distinctions are so tricky. And some of the Cortex hacks that are out there for different types of games, different types of settings, they use this. Why? Because they're presenting it in a way that, hey, this is how I want my game to work, and this is what you need to do in order to achieve that feel and that experience for that game. So nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with
Nothing
that,
wrong.
right? um
Now,
but yeah,
because
so
distinctions are a phrase, because distinctions are, or could be, let me not say are,
yeah.
could be a phrase, then
Hmm.
it is also a wonderful way to build setting. So,
Yes,
you
it
know,
is.
if you make humorous distinctions, then you are helping build the tone of that and the setting.
Hmm.
Or if you build, for example, if you're building something that is sci-fi, the way that you phrase those distinctions could make the game feel more sci-fi or less sci-fi. Just like the name of your character, right? Like if you're playing a fantasy game, my name is Dranathor. Or, whereas sometimes, I don't know if it's happened to you, but you have players, you're like, okay, so what's your character's name? And they're like, my name is Bloopy. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, but you're like this great berserker and your name is Bloopy? Oh, yeah, I guess. Well, it's one of those things where maybe you want your distinctions to uh, to help bring and enhance the feel for the thing.
Yeah.
Like so distinctions could be an opportunity for you to help uh, build that sense of atmosphere, tone, and theme into your game.
And
Yes.
that's where it comes in that this is a game that embraces the creatives and the people who want to like get into their actual characters as opposed to just being numbers on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, talking about numbers, that's a good segue. So the second
Nice. Oh
trait
my
Yes.
god, that
said,
was a
I did
pro
not
move.
plan that. Did
That
not
was
plan
no,
that.
no.
so
Say you did. Say you did.
Oh, I did plan that. Totally planned.
so
Yes.
so
we
the
are we
second,
are professionals.
yes, so the second prime, so the actual second trait set, but the actual prime set, it's called attributes, right? And because we're trying to make this fantasy trophy thing, we are going to choose 6 of them, which are going to be
Strength.
I
which are going to
didn't
be.
get the notification for this.
Oh, you didn't? What do you mean?
Wait, no. Is this on the a shared Notion?
No, no, it is
No, no,
not.
no.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
We're yeah, we're just
We're just winging it right now. And
we're
that's how
yeah.
easy it is to create a game in Cortex. We're winging it right now. Honestly, we are. So,
Okay.
so the attributes are, if you take your famous fantasy trope games, right? Your famous games, you have strength, dexterity,
Int.
constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. That is it. Those could be your attributes.
And
And each of
clearly
those,
charisma is always the dumb stat. Always.
always. But
Clearly.
and so each of those you assign a die type from a D4. Well, actually no, it's a 3 of them get a D8, the
Hmm.
rest get a D6, and then depending on the rules and the mods that you're providing, then you switch them up and down
You
to
move them up
adjust.
to
You
to
move
to
one
fit
up,
your character.
yeah, you
Hmm.
move one up, and then you
You have
have
to
to
move
step
another
one
one.
down. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
uh
The idea is to keep an average of 8. So you can, if you
mhm,
add all of the numbers at the end, and then you divide by 6, you should be getting something close to 8.
yeah.
Hmm.
Oh.
So, and then now, okay, so let's say I'm trying to do something. I have my distinction, I have my attribute, but there's another third set that you really
The third
need.
one.
The
Ba, ba, ba,
third one.
ba, 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 ba,
Ba,
ba.
ba, 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 ba. All right. So the third
We are
one,
not affiliated with Square Enix. Okay, go.
yes, very true. Um, so the third one is, in this case, we chose approaches.
Approaches. Mm-hmm.
Yes, you
We
do. You
yes.
might recognize them from Fate, Fate Accelerated, more specific, or Fate
Mm-hmm.
Condensed now, I guess. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so the approaches are another six traits that you can actually use, and you do the same thing. You give him a D8, three D8s, two D6s, and then you move one up, and then you move another one down, right? And so those three things will encompass every single action and will describe your character. And honestly, you do not need anything else to play Cortex. You do not, as a player, you do not need anything else. Now, because we love our equipment, we love our loot, right? We love our ciphers, we love
Oh,
our
sorry.
things.
I don't know if just for those of you, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, yeah,
For
yeah.
those of you who may not be familiar, because we assume that you were familiar with Fate, but for those of you who are not familiar with Fate, the difference between skills and approaches is that skills, which we've seen in games like Fifth Edition, like Savage Worlds, and so on and so forth, skills talk about what you can do. Approaches talk about how you do it. So we're
Yes.
not, when
Mm-hmm.
we build a game, if we are building a game where we are not using skills, but instead are using approaches, the message we're sending with our game design is we are already aware that our heroes are competent and
Yep.
capable of
Yep.
doing
Yep.
this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the distinctions are what's going to provide the narrative permission to say whether you can do something or not, but the approaches will help enhance how each person will go about it, right? So if you have two people who are playing a war, like let's say one of them is playing a warrior, the other one's playing a berserker, and maybe a third one is playing a paladin, something that has always been a little weird for me is that, well, all three of these guys can fight. And how do we really quantify that one
Mm-hmm.
can fight better than the other? Let's just say that in by choice, by choosing instead of skills, by choosing approaches, then what we are saying is, look, we know all three of you can fight. We know all three of you can go rar. What we want to know is how each of you does it. Maybe one of them does it in a very flashy way. Maybe the other one does it in a very forceful way, berserker.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe one of them does it in a very clever way, where you would have your warrior strategist, right?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of like knows where to place their shield very cleverly and be able to, so or maybe you have like a roguish kind of like person who fights with flair, so you have,
Mm-hmm.
the person who fights flashily. So approaches, for those of you who are unfamiliar, the six approaches that we have, did you mention them and I missed
No,
them
I
or
did
no?
not. I did
Okay,
not.
so
No,
the six approaches
because you
are
cut me off.
of course I did. That's what this show is about. For those of you that are unfamiliar,
Everybody
the show,
cutting each other off.
there we go. So just happened right now, the three of us just did to each other. We
I'm
like to
about to
think
do it
of it,
again, but go ahead.
we
There you go.
we like to think of it as we complete each other's sentence. No, we
Uh,
interrupt each other. Now,
yeah, of course. Psh, come
in
on
this
now.
case, we have careful, clever, flashy, forceful, quick, and sneaky. So those are six ways. However, these could also be changed if you want, but we like these. They're very fun. They're very easy to implement. So if somebody's going to make a roll, they would choose what distinctions back up that action, which inherent attribute of themselves, their strength, their wisdom, their charisma, powers it, and then finally how they go about it, which would be I'm doing this carefully. So let's say that I am, the Dark Knight of Gotham. Then I'm about to jump from one rooftop to the other, and I describe it as me taking a running start and then kind of like dodging and weaving through like the darts being thrown at me by this other character. And then I jump, do like a somersault in the air, and land poof, with a thud, or like a 3 point landing, like Iron Man, right? Like boom. So by that description, I would say, well, I'm going to use my Dark Knight of Gotham distinction. I would probably use my dexterity, and I will do my flashy approach.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that would be the three dice that I would use for my roll. Just
And
that
Yes.
it's
was just an example.
worth noting Approaches is from Fate, and we're playing
Yes.
Cortex Prime.
Yeah.
And you could just pick something up out of some other game and then just plop it into Cortex Prime and you can make it
Hey,
work.
don't don't
I
don't
Like it
don't say that because apparently it's
oh,
not.
it is what's the word? I can't remember the word. It is people don't like it but we do it anyway.
We do it anyway, and it doesn't break the game. It does
And
It
not
does
break the
not
and
game.
break the game.
one would say,
No.
why, if I want to play with approaches, why don't I just play Fate? Well, because I want to play Cortex.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
That is that
wow,
is
that was
that
savvy
is
bringing in
that
the
is
anger. There we
savvy
go.
savvy
I
being
love how we,
savage.
as a little kind of like addendum, because you just did something that I just like, we just did something that totally triggered me. We just did this like symbol of grabbing something and putting somewhere else. Isn't that the little machine you put like a dollar on to grab like a
Yeah,
thing and it never
yeah,
does?
yeah, yeah. The
Well, to
crane, yeah.
Anyways,
grab,
oh my god, I hate
you
those.
don't get to do
Oh,
that.
so it's like it goes,
It's called the
and then you just,
claw.
yeah.
It's called.
However, I will have you know that this will not stop me from spending the next $20 still trying.
Yeah, of
Anyway,
course not.
let's continue.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead, Ghost. Take it away.
All
Take it
right.
away.
Where we've ended up.
So so uh so the only thing is the okay, distinctions get a die rating of D8, right? Always, okay? Unless your game says that they can be turned up and down as well, right? Because maybe you want to replace distinctions with another trait that's called a trait statement. And that one does go up and down depending on how you do it, but we're not going to
But
get
that's
into that.
another mod. That's yet
That's
another
another mod.
mod
That's
that
another thing you can do.
whose
But anyway,
details you can read on the book. Mhm.
yes, yes, I totally recommend the book. So so we have all three traits, right? And because, as I was saying before, I got cut off. We we love our equipment, we love our loot, we love our artifacts, we love our magic weapons, we love all those things, right? We like to carry shiny things.
The
So
flaming sword of Drakthar.
so there is a trait set called in Cortex called signature assets. That is where you put those things now. Now, be aware when you're trying to do things that when you're trying to add signature assets have to mean something. It's not the same thing to put in, hey, I have a longsword, than to say I have the weapon passed down by my grandfather who defeated the dragon of, like, I don't know,
Ragnar.
Grognar or something.
Drakthar. There we go. Yeah.
I
Ragnar.
don't know. I don't know.
Ragnar.
So yeah, so it's not the
Drakthar.
same thing to say that. That is to say I have a longsword, right? So they have to mean something to you. And again, here's the kicker: they don't have to be actual equipment, right? They don't have to be physical things. They can be anything. I think we played a game, right? Actually, where it was, um, I think you had like your righteousness, like faithfulness, the something that was your signature
Yeah.
asset. Everything you
Yeah.
did, you try to put your faith on it because hey, you that has a die too. That has a die type,
Yep.
so you want to roll that as well.
Yep.
And so you want to have maybe it's usually a D6. Usually that's where it starts. D6.
And yeah, yeah. And I mean, just to clarify, that
Mm,
that's just one way, but it could also be like if you're bringing in like a known IP, like let's
yeah.
say you're bringing in
Mm,
Star Wars, um, there's a spaceship, but then there's the Millennium Falcon,
yep.
and then
Hmm.
that is something that could be like a signature asset. And it can also actually a signature asset could also be even another character, right? Like you could say you're Han Solo. Like let's say you're Han Solo, and none of the other players are Chewbacca. Your signature item could be Chewbacca, or your signature asset could be Chewbacca, and then you would have like a rating. And then whenever Chewbacca helps you do something, then you would roll the Chewbacca die, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
could just be people as well.
So yeah, so you have all those things. So technically, we just created a high fantasy game
Done.
done, and actually, you can use it for any type of genre you want. It can be those same things that we just described. It can be for steampunk. It can be for urban. It can be for
Easy.
supernatural. It could be horror. It could
Cowboys
be
versus aliens.
yes. It could be anything you want it to be. Right now, here's my thing though. There's a difference when you try to do it that way, where you can slap on every setting, right? You can slap on, and actually, when I have many conversations about this, when you're trying to just slap on a setting on a system and then make it work, because it requires the help from the entire group to be okay with it. That's the actual reason, and to know, as he said, to know the tropes very well for that specific setting that you're trying to to play in, emulate, play in, whatever you want to call it, right? So yeah, so those four trait sets, you you don't need anything else than that,
That's
right?
all you need.
That's
Everything
all
else
you
is
need.
flavor. Everything else is flavor.
Everything else is flavor. Now, if you do
Now,
want it, yeah.
I was just gonna say, Bill the Bobder mentioned
Hey,
skills coming
Bill! Shout out to Bill.
directly. Shout out to Bill, um, who I told that you, Ghost, had made an incredible City of Mist hack. Turns out he
He was
played
the
in it
yeah,
with us.
yeah, yeah, he did.
He was
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
and I am just,
Bias.
yeah.
you know, um, but skills and the skills come straight from Pathfinder or 5e. The problem with that, because I ported a
Yes.
Pathfinder game
Yes.
into Cortex Prime, there are too many skills. It is too much.
Way too many.
Nobody wants to go through, well, some people do want to go through their
Some
three
people do.
pages of character sheets to find what they want to do. I don't. And that's not the kind of game I want to provide.
Yeah.
And so I would not suggest. I feel like the more. I know Ghost had said something like, not here, but in the past, take the amount of attributes or values that you have and double it, and that should be the amount of skills that you have.
I
Wow,
said
that's a
that?
cool.
You
I said
did say
Wow,
that?
that.
Ghost.
I did?
Did Ghost say that? Ghost can't say, he can't say smart stuff. That was very smart. Are you
He
sure?
did
No, I'm
say
joking.
that.
I'm
He's like,
joking.
you should,
He's
yeah, you
Honestly,
joking.
I
should.
don't
Yes, he
honestly
did.
I don't remember. I don't remember.
I love
Honestly.
how
I
he
do
really
not.
honestly says, I
I
couldn't have
could
said that.
I could have said
That was
that.
too wise.
Whatever.
Well, you did tell me that, and so I followed that, and
That's
I
wonderful.
whittled
That is
down,
wonderful.
Okay.
whittled it down to
That's
12
awesome.
skills out of like 24
Maybe
or
it's in the book.
30
I
or
don't know.
whatever.
It's possibly in
That's
the book.
Who
awesome.
reads
Yeah.
the
That's
book?
who reads the book.
It's
That's what we're here for.
That's what
what
I
we are
talk to
here
Ghost
for.
about. I don't need to
it's
read the book. I just go ask Ghost
That's awesome.
what
I
I
don't
should
know.
do. Okay,
So it's
anyway,
funny. That's funny.
that would be that answer. You don't want a ton of skill. Unless you do, but you don't want a ton of
Okay.
skills.
So
I
wait, before
remember one of the
wait,
things
wait,
that
wait.
turned
Before
me
we
off of
continue,
Savage.
Wait, Ghost wants
bef-
to wrap
before
up the
no,
what we did.
no. Actually, I just want to say a shout out to Rusty Sellsword because he's actually talking in
And
the chat
Rusty.
too.
Shout
So
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
thank you for
Woo!
that. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, go ahead, Axel. What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say that actually, when we were, and you remember this, when we were playtesting Savage Worlds, one thing that
Wait.
the
Okay.
extent
So go back. So we didn't play test it as it was coming out. We just played it to see if we liked it. Let's
right,
make
Yeah,
that
we
there
call
you
it a
go.
clarification.
playtest. Yeah, we call it a playtest to make ourselves sound more important than we are.
I know. Yeah.
But the fact is that when we were okay, so when we were testing Savage Worlds for our group, that's better. We were
Yeah.
testing
Yep. Yep.
Savage Worlds for our group. I remember that before playing it, right? You know that I think it happens to all of us. We read a game and then we're like, "This is the greatest thing to have ever been
Yep.
invented," and
All the
then we
time.
play it and we go, "This is the most horrible thing ever created by a human being." So when I read
Yeah.
Savage Worlds, which it's not to say it isn't, Savage Worlds is magnificent. But when I
Mm-hmm.
read it, I felt at the moment that one of the good things about it was that the skill set was so granular. There were so many skills. I felt like, oh, it's gonna be able to provide or to help build characters that are very specialized, very unique. But then when I was playing, when I would tell somebody, okay, roll blah, and then I would draw a blank because the skill list was so large. It's like, well, I'm doing this thing. Yeah, but what skill fits that? So you have to look through this list. And the problem when you have a lot of different skills is that you may have two or three skills that any of them may fit, and you spend too much time deciding which of the three. If
So
you
Mm-hmm.
on
have
the
less, yeah, go
on
ahead.
the opposite side of that, Bill the Bobder actually clarified. He said that it would be intimidating or confusing for players coming from having basically what they can do laid out for them to
Yes.
a
Yes.
more how like
So
approaches
That is such a great
yes.
point.
approach.
That
Yes.
is such a
Yes.
Yeah.
great point. It
So
is a great point.
so the point with that is the way that I think we talked about it in the previous thing.
We have, but
So
it's no problem bringing it back up. Mhm.
yeah, there's no problem. So the thing is that Cortex is based on how fate is, on how narrative is. But the thing is that you can do so much stuff with it that it might be confusing or it might feel like maybe
Overwhelming.
you're overwhelming. But honestly, it isn't. You just figure out what it is you want to do, and then you look at the character sheet and you figure out, okay, this works, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, right? More traditional games, it has to be the other way around for the reason of how much rules and how much tight it is. In that regard, that's
Very important to point out is that at least in Fate, and I'm trying to remember if Cortex includes this, there is a very specific part of the rule book that states that you should consider your character to be highly competent, and that is a very
Yeah.
important point.
hmm
And the point
They are
is,
not starting at level 1.
yeah, so I
hmm
think that is a very big leap when you're playing a traditional game to when you're playing a more narrative game. Is that players are not like I for me it was the big. I come from 4E. Ghost comes from 4E. This was our first foray.
yes, it
Was
was.
D&D fourth edition, and
Oh,
we're
I
First
loved it. I loved it.
foray.
By the way,
yeah.
I loved it.
Oh wow,
First
Savvy.
foray into
Foray,
Our
4E.
first
foray.
foray was 4E. Very cool. So the thing is, one of the biggest hurdles for me was is going from I I can do anything? Wait a minute. No, no, no. I can do anything?
Yeah.
And that was such a big deal. And I said, no, no, impossible because my character shouldn't be good at anything. Well, big thing about the narrative game is that you're right. Your character probably won't be as good as you think it is. Just tell me what you want to do. And we are going to see how the narration may reflect your relative proficiency. So let me explain. Just because you have a high number on something
hmm
doesn't mean that when you succeeded looking amazing at it. I'll explain. Do you guys know are familiar with who Mr. Bean is?
Ah,
The
of
character
course.
Mr. Bean. Are
Yeah.
you familiar with Inspector Clouseau from Pink Panther?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Jackie Chan in like a billion of
Yes.
his movies? In many of these movies, and probably not Jackie Chan, but usually his psychics. Um, Sometimes these characters perform great feats that they succeed in, but they look like bumbling fools as they're doing it. They fall, blah, 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 and then mistakenly hit the light bulb, and suddenly they do a thing that was majestic. Or they like slip down the stairs, but then land gracefully by me. So they succeeded at the role, but the way that it was described was through kind of like a bumbling, kind of like,
Mhm.
semi idiotic way. So what I'm trying to say is that in a narrative game, the character sheet and the numbers and the whatever uh, are guidelines to see what your narrative weight is, not what your actual proficiency is. That's going to be determined by your distinction. Your narrative weight means how much does this action impact the scene. So when you say I have 4 strength or a +3 in fate, or you say I have a D10 or D12, what does that even mean? Well, it doesn't mean much. That just means that when you use your strength in whatever way, you are successful. So you can have someone who is meek. For example, let's say you have a D12 in strength. It could come to mean that you are very strong, no problem. But then that would mean that Superman having a D12 will be just as strong as some other character that also has a D12.
The
Maybe not
Hulk.
because, or the Hulk, right? But we do know that their strengths are a little different. So in this case, is I as Superman or I as Hulk will have a lot of impact through my strength in the way this scene resolves. And that's a bit of a leap that I
And
have
Yep.
to come to
Yep.
and
terms with.
that is if you manage to roll well.
Assuming you manage to roll well. Exactly.
Assuming you
If you
manage
are
to roll
Yes.
ghost,
well.
if
Yes.
you are
Yeah.
ghost, you will not roll well.
No, of course not. Never do.
Of course not.
But Savvy's a little salty from the City of Beast game we played. She did her
I just
her
wanted to do something really cool, and then the system kept me down.
yeah, and so that's
Ah,
so
Down.
talking about that, I did change that, Savvy. I made it into a thing. So I did change the rule for that to help because I didn't want it to have because it's such a great, very important, again, very important action in the scene to let it in the hands of the dice. It should not be that way. It should not
Yeah.
because it's so important and so it was a game changer. It was, and the way you described it was awesome.
And then I
And
rolled
just
the dice.
and they rolled the dice, it got like 2 ones, and it's like, ugh,
I
and then
mean,
everything went.
I think I read some advice somewhere that says only roll dice when either outcome would be just as interesting.
It was interesting because we
Yeah.
described it. It was interesting, but
Well, the
it
thing
was a
is,
contest. It was a
it
contest.
gave and
Yeah,
it gave my failure gave the spotlight to somebody else who was
hmm
able to do a super interesting
yeah,
wrap up
Yeah.
They just came in and destroyed everything with their ninja moves.
And so I like Bill,
Classy,
and then
classy.
Bill, and then some of us rolled the dice and 1-2 punched a shark woman. Yes, they fought a shark
Wait,
woman.
hold on. You had a shark woman in your
Yeah,
Oh
game.
yeah,
she was
Why
a
was
shark
I not
woman.
playing this amazing game that had
I
like shark
told
people?
you. I
Yeah,
invited
you had
you.
the
Where was I?
chance.
Wait a minute. Was I being like responsible and doing oh, okay, never mind.
You were, you
Nah,
were.
you were adulting,
I
whatever
was
that
adulting.
means.
Okay, got it. No, but
No.
yeah, but for sure. I think Ghost take is very cool, which is if it's something that's very important that shouldn't fail, then we probably shouldn't roll dice for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
So
very cool
that one,
about it.
it needed to be because it was a contest, and then they were up against the big bad. And honestly, narratively, that would have been a little bit. But that's a debate we can. That's a debate we can have all night long about that, right? So
I don't
Disclaimer.
feel like there should be a guaranteed resolution in the hero's favor towards the big bad. I feel like
oh, hey,
sometimes.
that's a mic
How can
drop
you
right
make
there.
a controversy, such a controversy yet brave?
No, I
I,
support it though. I do support it though. I do. I do.
disclaimer. If you're a new viewer of the show, first of all, welcome. We love you.
Yes.
Second of all, have you noticed that we have completely digressed from our typical? So get used to
Well,
it.
we made the game and now we're just talking about stuff.
Now
Yeah, we were
yeah,
just made the game, so we already did what we're going to do in like 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and then we're just now talking about
that's how
what.
quickly you can build a game.
Oh.
Yes. So,
Bill is throwing us back on track there.
oh,
Thank you,
he is.
Bill. Finally, someone with some maturity here. Thank you, Bill.
Okay. So once you create your approaches, usually what you want to do either with the attributes and the approaches, right? It's 6 of them each. This is for just this game. This is for this game.
Just for this one.
Um, what is recommended again, whatever change you make, as long as it averages to 8, is not going to break Cortex. So you create always the first 3 are a D8, everything else is a D6. For attributes and approaches, if you're using something like skill, which is a long list, and that's the thing about skills, it's a
Then it's like
long
two
list.
thirds. Then it should be
Yeah, it's
two
two
thirds of the
thirds.
point.
Yeah, then you have to spend
You
points
start
and
at
all that stuff.
D4.
You start at
Yeah, you
D4 and then you
started. So
spend
all the
points.
skills start at D4, and you
Hmm.
get the amount of points is roughly two thirds of the amount of skills. So
Yeah,
if you have, for example, 12 skills, you would have 8 points. In that
yeah,
regard, you take those 8 points, and each point will upgrade one die
yeah.
from D4 to D6, and then another point from D6 to D12. Sorry, D6 to D8, and
Hmm.
then D8 to D10, and then D10 to D12.
Yes.
So by specializing in only one skill, you're taking away a lot of power from the rest.
Yeah.
Just so but it is of course in the absolute purview of the player to assign
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
points as they see fit.
So one thing. So what we want to do, what we want to bring with this is when you create a game in Cortex, you have to get into the creative designer mind space in order to do this. Why? Because as Axio and I have talked about it, whenever you create a game in Cortex, every time you do, you have to teach it to your players because it'll probably, unless you're doing the same thing every single time,
Mhm.
you have to explain the rules to your players every single time. It's like whenever you want to change, oh, let me change systems and let's play this other system, which is awesome. Let's play this other thing, this is awesome. But instead of like having to read a 300-page book every single time, you can just read different things that you want to use for your game at that moment and then apply those and teach those all from the same book, right? So, for example, let's say strength, we have strength approach, we have attributes approaches, and we have signature assets. Let's say I don't want to do those. Let's say I want to add something that's called specialties, right? That's something that's different, is going to change the feel and the scope of the game as well. um and oh,
No.
what happened? We lost Axio.
Axio. Oh no, we're
Oh crap,
broken.
we're
We're
broken.
broken.
We're broken.
Thanks, Axio. You broke it.
You broke it. All right. you
Sorry. Here I am. I'm here.
All
I'm
right.
And
back.
Ghost. Oh wait, I'm savvy. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, so let's say you want to bring this different month, and that those are things you're gonna have to teach to your players, because if they don't know it, then technically you have to teach the game, right? But the only thing about Cortex, it doesn't matter how what you put in the game, what mods you choose, or what things you want to take out, you want to change, you want to add in, the core resolution mechanic is always the same. You pick some die types, some traits, some dice, you gather the dice pool, you throw it, you add two. And there's a lot of other things you can do with that. But that
Okay,
is the the core mechanic of the game.
okay, okay. I'm really excited because Bill posted a great question, and we've talked about the core mechanic of the game. Um, okay, maps and
Maps and
VTTs and
tokens.
tokens, and we are not going to be hateful.
No, we're
I am not
not.
hateful. I own
That is a
Foundry.
topic for an entire show, I
I
would
own
say.
Foundry
Yeah.
VTT. I
Mhm.
ran games in Foundry, namely Pathfinder. I very much enjoyed finding all the maps. I did not enjoy making my own. I found every map that I needed, and but the problem, I think, with maps and Cortex is maps get players into a very step by step mindset. Like, so my players would be like, I move 3 up and 2 to the right. It's like playing a game of chess. Or maybe not. I've
Yes.
never played chess. I don't know. Um, but
Something
but
like that.
yes, something like that. It's like a chess game, and some people enjoy that. But when you are playing Cortex and you have the narrative freedom to say what you want to do, um, I personally find having a map might lock people down in what they think. Like
So
it steals creativity.
so
That's what I
there
feel
you
like.
said it. You
That's what
said
I
it.
think.
Okay.
I just said
So
it. It steals the creativity
so
away
the-
from the
so so
players.
so the only thing I
Yeah.
would add to that, or kind of, yeah, so it is very limiting the creative. It limits the creativity of the players. Why? Because once you put down a map, it's a very visual thing, right? And again, it's one of those things, right? You may be. I'm not a very descriptive GM. Right, because if you have a narrative game, you have to be, in a sense, because you have to kind of teach them, not teach them, but show them through the senses, hearing, smell, eyes, taste, even like what it is around them, so that way you can prompt the players. But a lot of a lot of that can also be done from the player sides. You can ask questions to your DM. You can say, okay, so why do I see here? Okay, you see this. Okay, so is it okay if I do this and try to do that? Okay, yeah, you can do that because it doesn't interrupt with whatever you want to do or whatever is in the way. Or maybe, hey, can I find, is there like a piece, like a bottle or something on the way? Yeah, you can. I don't, as a GM, I don't have to. It involves all the entire group in order to be able to set the scene, and to progress through the scene with your own actions, right? I don't know if I'm making sense right now,
No, you,
but
you you are. I'm going to
Yeah.
actually be conciliatory here, and I'm going to offer my 2 cents. But Sabi was going to say something potentially way more
I
important than me.
I was. I don't know if it's more important. I just wanted to say, Rusty says focusing on miniatures and tokens can limit your
wait,
options
wait.
potentially.
He does say that feng shui taught me that the map is not your friend. Feng shui rocks. I did feng shui. No, sorry, not feng shui. Feng shui. I ran a one shot of feng shui 2, and it is a very awesome, like, action, hard boiled kind of little. I think it's Little Big Trouble in China or something like that. That's the movie, and it's an awesome game. I'm just throwing it out there, but yeah.
I have
All right.
heard great
Um,
things about that game. But wait, I wasn't
Yeah.
done, Axio. I wanted to say, um, Bill is talking
Mm,
about
feng shui.
having the map is for people to be able to like see what's in the area. I
Yep.
think you could find like I would do that. I would have the map. I would not have tokens. They would not be able to move around the
Mm,
map. The map would just show them their options or
okay.
some of their options or
That's yeah.
whatever. Then that
Yeah.
would be a good marriage, I feel like. But I would not have tokens because I don't want my players going, I'm gonna move 3 spaces up and 2 to the left. And is there anything in here? And then I'm gonna move to the right and up. Is there anything in here? And then I'm gonna move. Yeah, I don't want that. But I would have just the plain old map and no tokens.
Yeah.
And now you can go Axio. Sorry.
no, it's fine. It's fine. I have some thoughts on this
Yeah, of course you
first.
do.
I have two thoughts that are conciliatory and one that is inflammatory. So I'm going to do the conciliatory ones first, which is One method that I have found works well to bridge the gap between players who are used to a map and RGMs, and then that theater of the mind ethos that tends to permeate the narrative game space is to build the map as they go. I'll explain what that means. Is you can actually have players or designate a player who is your player cartographer, and then as you are playing and you are describing the scene, the cartographer player would be designing the map as you go, such that the choices themselves can still feel free, but then you can have a map in case you backtrack to any of the places you've been. So that
Good
could be a
idea.
way that you can integrate the idea of map making and map building. You can outsource it to your table at the same time. And you can, so it's kind of like having your cake and eating it too. It's just an idea that I want to throw out there in case you do feel that urge to play with maps, then you can build a map as you go based on the choices made during the game. The second thing is the idea of the map being a wonderful resource as part of your GM prep. That way, if a
Yep. Yep.
player chooses to do something, you still have the map on your end. So when you're describing, you're not entirely going off theater of the mind. You, as the GM, you're looking at the script, you're looking at the map, and you know where the edits are, but you are actively narratively
Yep.
giving them to your players. So that's another way that you as the GM can satisfy that urge to make a map while at the same time keeping the floor open. Those were the conciliatory ones. The less conciliatory comment is one argument that I've had with Ghost for a while now, which is the fact that we are a generation that has, for better or worse, been spoiled a little bit by video games. So we tend to
Mhm.
Yep.
ascribe and to try to bring the visual medium and the visual accessibility of a video game into our tabletop game to the point that we see now some VTTs
Yes.
offering what is borderline and
Yes.
a
You.
Super Nintendo game
Yeah.
that you need to build if you want to play a
So
certain.
yeah, so there are some VTTs. There is a VTT out there.
Yeah,
Not I think
we
it's
are not
Adventure Roll, or
affiliated
we're not
either.
affiliated. It's Adventure Roll where you actually play your character as a 3D, like Skyrim and like Fallout, and like, yeah, in a
Right.
fantasy.
So
Yes, it is ridiculous. There's some videos of the character on top of a dragon flying through the air and stuff. I'm like,
yeah. So
what
my
is
Okay,
this?
but that sounds really cool.
okay, no,
I
it
mean,
does. Hold on. My point will address that. My point will address that.
yeah,
The issue I tend to have with this is the following. There is a phrase where I grew up, okay, that says, "Don't argue with X type of person because they're gonna drag you in the mud and they're gonna beat you up there because you're out of your element." So I'll explain what that means in terms of this. When you compare a video game to a TTRPG, if you dare go into the visual space, a video game will drag you through the mud and it's going to kick you in the pants
yeah.
because you're
Yes.
never going to be able to emulate the visual impact that the beautiful graphics created by a very highly paid professional has made for the game, with the added idea that you can, at the moment in real time, interact with said map. Therefore, when you try to build visuals into your TTRPG game, here's what you're actually doing. You are already competing against a medium that can do it much better than you. And on top of that, if you happen to have a player in your game for whom your description builds a wonderful thing, the moment you show them your map or your image, you just downgraded their mental image. Now, however, I'll be fair, not everybody is
Hmm.
visual.
Yep.
Not all the players can do that. As a matter of fact, some players would actually appreciate, and we need to understand that we're all different. Some players cannot visualize, and that's okay. So it is very important, and I cannot stress this enough. Your session zero will let you know what your players' expectations are. Getting to know your players and being open to your players' needs will let you know. So maybe if you have a table where a good chunk or all of your players are very used to a map and want the map and need the map, even if it's Cortex, good news, you can use your map. And no amount of advice from us can change that. Please use it, have fun, do great. I think what we are talking about is the fact that when we talk about map usage in Cortex, first point is we don't really need it. Second point is that the expansive nature of narrative games is such that eventually even the most hardened map lover will eventually say, wait a minute, my player wants to go to that planet and I didn't have a map for it. Let's go to that
Or
planet.
or I made all these beautiful maps and they don't want to go here. What's wrong with you? I
Mm.
am now
So,
putting
Alright.
you on the
Put
train.
him in the
let's
train.
railroad. Choo
Yeah,
choo.
put him in the tracks. Hey, as
And
long as they
then,
don't see
yeah.
the tracks, you're gonna be okay.
And then your player goes, okay, I go to the right. Okay,
Actually, you take
Let's
as you
switch
three
were
the map.
rights.
walking, as you
You
were
take a
walking, you slipped on a banana, and suddenly you are 180 degrees opposite to where you were going.
Hey, you can
And there's
switch
the
the
old one.
map around. You can switch the dungeon around. Be like, hey, you
Where
were
are you
supposed to go
going? You
right, but
quickly
you.
switch, go like that. Okay.
Yeah,
No,
but
I want to go to the. I want to go to the tavern. Oh, you mean the bank? No, no, the tavern. Oh, the bank. The bank called tavern. Yes. So in this
yes,
beautiful
yes.
bank,
exactly, yeah, yeah. You know, it's. But
but
yeah,
I
but
can't have a beer in. I can't have a beer in the bank. The security guard gives you a beer. There, you're in the bank. You're in the bank now.
and he's polishing some glasses.
There we go.
So yeah. So the point is that going back to it, yeah, the having maps is not it's not bad. Honestly, you can have maps. You can
You
have
can.
it.
It's
You
just not
can.
a requirement.
It's not a requirement. You can have it. You can have as many maps as you want, and you can even play the game tactically if you want. There is nothing stopping you from playing
As a
Cortex in
matter
a
of fact, when
tactical
it comes
way.
to tactics, and I should know because I'm planning, lol, in the way that all GMs plan games. I am planning at some point. I really want to do an XCOM game. For those of you out there who are familiar with
Hmm.
XCOM, there
Hmm.
is a trait set called affiliations that include, for example, traits could be solo, team, or buddy, or your trait sets could be short range, long range, close quarters. You can have tactical choices as your
Yes.
trait
Yep.
sets,
Hmm.
and if your character is better at a specific
Yeah.
tactic than
Hmm.
another character,
Yeah.
then you would have a higher dice. So, for example, let's say your character is really good at taking the high ground, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So if your character is really good at taking the high ground, you could have that your tactics are high ground, low ground, whatever, and then you would have a D12 or a D10 in there. So you can have tactical map-based games. Don't get me wrong, but it would be remiss of us to not mention the fact that for anybody who is coming from a map-heavy game, it is not a require.
Yeah,
That's
it
all.
is. It is not a requirement. Yeah, so I did the same thing. So Axel gave me the idea. So I did create a Mass Effect Cortex Prime game with attribute because everybody's competent in Mass Effect. Everybody is. So I did attributes, distinctions, attributes, approaches because it's actually more fun if how do you do things instead of what you do in the thing
It's
in
very
the
cool.
game.
Play with approaches, guys. At least once in your lives, you're gonna love it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm about to go
And
change all my games to approaches.
so you do
Beautiful,
approaches, and then I did tactics, right? Close quarters, assault range, or snipe range, which is
amazing.
beautiful to what Mass Effect is. And then I did, and then what something you can do in Cortex is I'm gonna leave you with this. Actually, I'm not gonna talk about my games. I'm not gonna do that. So I'm gonna leave you with this. This is gonna break what we everything we just talked about. This is gonna break it.
Break it,
So
Ghost. Don't hold back.
so when you create a character sheet for the game, as long as you have the three prime sets, any other set can be different for each character.
Love it. I remember who gave you that hint. Wink.
I know, I know. So you can have somebody with abilities, you can have somebody with powers, you can have somebody with resources, you can have somebody with signature assets, and as long as the three prime sets don't change, you can change it. You can have all them different. Okay.
If you're playing Zelda, Link could have a signature asset in the Master Sword, but if you're playing someone like Mifa or someone like Daruk, you could have then those have magic powers that Link don't have doesn't have.
Yep.
So
Yep.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so I think we close with that. Blasphemy? No, it is not blasphemy. It is
Not
actually.
blasphemy is a
It is
thing that you can do.
it is the bread and butter of Cortex Prime is that you can just
Yeah.
do
So,
whatever
It's
you
very
want.
all
difficult
right.
to
So,
break it.
Rusty Seltzford, he does bring a good point though. He says as long as you don't have SFX that refer to traits that a player doesn't have, you can have an entire game without SFX. I'm gonna throw that out there too.
Yeah.
So
Ghost has done it.
I've done it. So
Well,
Just as
one
I've played
SFX.
Fate without stunts. For those of you
which
familiar with
I
Fate, I've played Fate without stunts.
yep, yep.
No problem. Yeah.
I like how he
As
says
a
that
matter of
it's
fact, if all of you, if any of you out there, just to bring this as
yep.
as my closing statement, if
Hmm.
any of you out there are curious and would like to know how this works, please remember that in our Discord server we run games. So just come in, partake.
Yeah.
We're gonna be announcing games all the time. We already are
I
announcing games all
will
the time.
I will be running more games within the after next week. I will be running actual one shots
Yep.
Yeah.
on at
So
least
and
Wednesdays and Tuesday.
And
Yeah.
during the
yeah.
summer, you'll get sick of me running stuff. During summer
Uh,
So
too.
that's I don't know if Axio runs games. I've never seen him
I
run
don't
one.
know.
I run
I don't know
games.
neither.
I am a myth.
It's been about a year since he actually ran a game for me. So
Yeah,
we'll
I've
see.
run games for Ghost. Don't expect too much, guys. It almost sounds like I'm building it up. It is every
So
bit as mediocre as
and
you think it is.
I will
Oh,
make
do you
I
see
will,
this? Look
yeah, I
at.
know. I saw that. I saw that.
I didn't know
Um,
I'm
that.
not looking at chat, so I don't know what's going
Oh,
yeah.
on. I'm
So
not looking at chat.
basically the comment that Rusty Seltzer said, it was the Cam said it, Cam Banks. So and that's fine, but I don't use, and so the SFX that I created for City of Mist, I just made it as a rule of the game. That way, there's no need for SFX. So and you're still gonna have an awesome
We
time.
love
So
Cam. We love
we
Cam,
love
but
Cam.
Cam has no power here.
So yeah, so since everybody's throwing out their own stuff, I'm gonna throw my own stuff out then, I guess. So
Go
I am
ahead, plug it.
actually,
Plug it, Ghost.
so I am actually going to in the next couple of weeks. I am creating a Forbidden Lands game in Cortex Prime.
We are not
So
affiliated with Free Alica.
we are not affiliated with them. I just love the setting. The rules are a little bit too much for me. Um,
It's a wonderful game, though.
oh,
that's what y'all didn't
uh,
get that. I was like,
I
why
didn't
are you
get
all
it.
like,
I'm
why are
sorry.
you being the way that you are? I was like, that's why I was like, look at the chat.
I'm sorry.
Look, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's
I
what
am
Cam said.
sorry,
And then
Mr. Banks. He's actually joining us right now. Mr.
he's
Cam
Awesome.
been here
Banks.
the
Yeah.
entire time.
Shout
Been here
out
the entire
to.
time.
I didn't figure. I'm just honestly. I'm looking at the Discord. I'm looking at the OBS. I'm looking at the Twitch. I'm looking at a lot of things right now. I'm just going by whatever's going on. I'm sorry. So yeah. Thank you. A shout out to Cam Banks for being here with
The
us.
creator of
Um,
the game that we are
creator
talking
of
about for the
Cortex
past two
Prime.
episodes.
Sir, you have made a believer of us. You have made us a fan, and I cannot say
And we are trying our darndest to break your game
yes, we
by
are.
building a whole
Actually,
bunch
if
of
you
cool
know,
things with it.
I am the same ghost that people were saying in the Cortex server, official server, that I broke the game, but I don't know.
We've been wanting to do so many great things with it, and so far we've been
Yes,
able to.
yes,
So it's
Yeah,
we have.
don't
It
it's
has
been so
don't look
allowed
great.
back.
me it has allowed me to bring all the experiences that I wanted to my table, and oh, it is one of the, if not the best games out there. It is one of the best games, just because of that malleability you can have with it. I honestly I love it. It is it is great. It is a great game.
Thank you
I
so
will
much. To the
thank
fact
you
that
so much for that.
we've dedicated the past two shows to your game, sir. So for
And
Yes,
sure,
also,
thank you
yes.
so
it
much.
comes up every time we
It
And
play
comes
we
up every
together.
time.
it comes up every time. It's always going to come up at every time. And actually, that's a good segue for what we're going to talk
Yep.
about for
Next
next
week
week.
on
Next
Table
week,
Talk RPG.
we are going to be talking about the three. Each of us is going to mention the three most innovative mechanics that we have found in any game out there. Well, and most of them are probably going to be from Cortex, but we're each going to talk about the our favorite most innovative mechanics, and so stick around for that next week, and that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is going to be fun. So we each have picked at least three that we love from all different games that we played, that we read. We don't even
Yep.
have to play them. We just read them,
Yep.
and we like those mechanics. And so we're going to talk about those. Yeah, I like I did share the Twitch. Yes, I did. And thank you for following. Yeah, all those that I followed, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is
Love
gonna
you.
Mostly,
be
we
uh,
usually do this like just to start it out, just us having fun. So
yes,
then we're like,
yes.
we should stream this and see what happens.
Yeah, so we've done it like I don't know, like at least 5 times before we actually started streaming, and Axio and I have done it for the past like what 2 years,
Years.
year
About two
and
years.
Informally.
Yeah.
informally because we just talk. And I told him, hey, we should do a podcast, for the past year, but he's been refusing. But now he cannot refuse. So because
I
it's
can't
out there
refuse
now.
anymore.
But thank you so
So
much, everyone, for
thank you
joining.
guys.
Yep, yep. We'll see you next time. Have a good one. Keep playing and have fun. Love each other and be
And
kind to one
always take
another.
the high ground. Always take the high ground.
Always. All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.